All right, welcome back, everybody. So, we are going to be talking about book news now. So, I'm going to pass it over to Lindsay. Lindsay has a lot of news this week.
I
I'm
have
excited.
so much, and like we're starting out with Harry Potter news,
Yes.
which I'm excited about. So Daniel Radcliffe did a profile in The Atlantic, and I read every last stitch of it, and it was fascinating from top to bottom. It made me fall in love with him all over again.
He's a great guy, honestly. Every time I read about him, the way that he survived like child stardom, I'm like so impressed and in awe of him, honestly.
He talks about that in the book about how, or I'm sorry, in the book,
It's a
in
book
the
podcast.
story, about how like when he was 12 or 13, he really got a sense of like how famous he was going to become and started getting a lot of questions about like, is this going to ruin your career? Is this going to turn you into a drug addict? And he was like, I was so aware of those two outcomes that I just like refused to fall into the trap of them.
And good for him. Because I think, and he has probably so much money right now. He has like what we would like to call a few money. And like he does a lot of passion projects right
Yeah,
now.
he's in a
And
Stephen Sondheim play right now,
yeah,
which is
like
so cool.
that's kind of what he does. I feel like he's just living his best life. He's like, I worked a lot. I'm making all of this money from Harry Potter and I get to do all my passion projects. And I think those little indie movies is, he did like the Swiss Army Man
Swiss
movie.
Army Man, yeah.
And like it was super critically like acclaimed and everything. And it was just like a passion project for him.
Yeah, and he's doing I think he's producing, I can't remember for sure, but I think he's producing a documentary about his stunt double in Harry Potter who he had like a really close relationship with and who in preparing for the films was paralyzed.
Oh no.
Yeah, and his name is David Holmes, and it was like basically this critical, pivotal moment in Daniel Radcliffe's life because it was his friend that was preparing for a role as his double and had this like terrible accident, and they talk about how it really like strengthened their friendship and how they like developed this really dark sense of humor with each other. And so he produced a show kind of about that called David Holmes, The Boy Who Lived, and it's on HBO. But it just made me love him even more.
Oh my God. You see, again, an incredible person, incredible
Such an
human
incredible
being.
person.
So I really
And
appreciate it.
in the profile, he talks about how he loves The Bachelor and he loves reality television. And like, you know how we feel about high low here. I love people that
Yes.
love the height of culture and what's considered the drugs. And he watches The Bachelor. And I was just thinking to myself, like, is he going to read Hannah Brown's book?
Oh my gosh. I feel like, I wonder if we can slide into his DMs and ask him. Be like, would you come into our podcast and discuss Hannah Brown's book?
Like he did a
please?"
Bachelor podcast with his friend. That's what they talk about that, and I was like, I'm in love with you. I
That's
love you so much.
amazing. I love him.
And then he briefly touches on his relationship with JK Rowling, which I thought was really the way that he talked about it was so classy and dignified. I think like he doesn't really get mired down in the controversy of his relationship with her. He basically is just saying like, I'm sad that this is ruining the legacy of these books and the world that she created, and all of that to me is so deeply empathic, and like for him it feels like such a departure from what the culture of the books is. But he basically is like highly involved in the Trevor Project, and he was like, I will not sway on this, like this is ridiculous and I don't believe in it. And I thought he did such a good job of being very diplomatic and still standing up for what he thinks is right. I loved it.
Oh, that's so great. And we touched on it about a little bit. It's like JK is just kind of making us have like really complicated feelings about Harry Potter,
Yeah.
which is very unfortunate because it's such a big part of like my upbringing and my reintroduction to a lot of reading. And it's just so sad that she's making us feel this way.
And he was saying in the profile, like, or no, sorry, he wasn't saying in the profile. J.K. Rowling responded on Twitter and basically said like she doesn't have the door open to like provide forgiveness to the characters for like what they've or the actors for what they've said about her comments. So like even that, it's like you're destroying your relationships with these people. It's just weird to me. Anyway,
Just big eye roll right now.
in any case, it made me love Daniel Radcliffe even more. It was a fascinating profile,
Yeah.
and I highly recommend it. It's in The Atlantic.
Okay. Love it. Thank you, Lindsay. And we have one more news around Harry Potter too. They are going to be re-recording all of the audiobooks. And this one
Yay!
is kind of exciting because they're going to be using over 100 voice actors to do the re-recording of this.
Oh, so they're having people like do the voices for the individual characters.
Exactly.
Oh my
So
god!
each character is going to have like their own voice and it's supposed to be out by next year. But I am so excited because it's just going to hopefully introduce a younger generation into Harry Potter and kind of give us like a different way to experience the book as well.
I can't wait. Those
So-
are my go-to-bed books. I listen to the Jim Dale versions. Cannot wait for that. It's going to be so exciting.
Yeah, so it'll be really good. I'm excited for that too.
Okay, so my update is a little sad, but we had talked about this before, and it's only strengthened my resolve that this will go on our TBR, and we will have a deep dive episode about it. And it's Brittany Griner did an interview with Good Morning America and a profile with New York Times Magazine, and talking about her experience in a Russian work camp. And it was it was not at all like I was expecting.
What do you mean?
I guess I was thinking like if it were me, I would have a lot of anger at the system and like the political landscape that led to me being imprisoned because she was in prison. She was supposed to be in prison for 9 years,
Jesus. That's a lot.
and she really doesn't approach it like that at all. Like it was heartbreaking because her perspective on it was basically just like I screwed up and I failed the people in my family around me and I like brought shame to them and it like
Oh
it
no.
was heartbreaking. And she talked about the circumstances around her arrest, which is essentially like she was living in Arizona. She had cartridges of THC on her just in her bag and they're really small. And so she was saying like I just packed my bag really quickly and like completely forgot they were there. Which like we've all done that. Like I've had times where I've been like, oh, I have my pepper spray on my keys or whatever. So I very much understood how she could be in that position. It made me feel so much more empathy for her situation, and it made me really more annoyed at people that were like, she shouldn't have been released. It's such an easy mistake, and she was doing something legal where she was coming from.
Yeah. I did hear a lot of that like commentary about like, well, she did something wrong, so she brought this app upon herself. And it's like we all get those brain fart moments where
Yeah.
we're just like don't think about things through, and it's just bad things just happen just by shitty circumstances. That's just kind of how it is, and it just happens that this was like a really stupid brain fart, and it just had so many consequences. And I feel like that could happen to anybody.
It could literally happen to anyone, and her perspective on it is so mature. I don't know. It made me my heart ache for her because she just felt embarrassed. That's the best way. Like shame. That was what I
Yeah.
saw on her face, and I don't feel like that's at all warranted. And the punishment did not fit the crime, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it made me want to read her memoir so much because my fear is that it's pretty close to when she was released, and sometimes I think you need time.
To process those emotions. Yeah.
But those interviews were great.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. So let's continue. I know we have this in our TBR, so maybe we can do a deep dive on it and kind of talk a little bit more about that. Maybe a really heavy topic, but sometimes those conversations
I
are
gotta
needed.
know though.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay,
For
lighter
sure.
news.
Yeah, lighter news. Oh, so Emily Henry did a really big interview with AP News recently. So as you guys know, about 2 weeks ago, from the time of we're recording this episode, her new book Funny Story got released. It was like a really big event. Actually, the what is the Roman store in New York? The Rip Bodice?
The Ripped Bodice.
Yeah, they had like a midnight release party, which we
Cool.
talked about in our first episode. It was super fun. She actually made a surprise appearance. So it was like a really big event.
Jealous.
It was a very highly anticipated book that she released. So she was just kind of talking about in this interview how we kind of sometimes romanticize like the first stages of dating other people, and she's just like, sometimes like I have been and she has been married for like to her partner for like a long period of time. So she's like sometimes she romanticizes like how going back to the early stages is so nice and like so like you have those butterflies and everything. But when we talk to like our single friends, it is hell out there for the dating world. It is crazy. I mean, so she kind of talks about that. Like she's like, we tend to kind of romanticize a lot of those early stages, and I know, and that's what she does in the books. But it's just for like to kind of chase this really nice feeling of that moment that you're just kind of getting to know and fall in love with somebody. But in reality, if we were to apply that in the real world, we have our single friends and we hear their stories from dating, and they're rough, man. I'm like, I don't know how they do it. It is really rough out
Well,
there.
and also anyone can be good for like a couple of dates. It's
Exactly.
I'm really obsessed with stories where it's about like long relationships and like dealing with the dynamics of having been with someone for a long time and comparing that to like what seems like a really exciting new prospect. Like, did you ever hear about that movie Past Lives that came out recently?
No. Mm-mm.
I'll talk about it quickly because I don't want to drag on
Yeah.
too long, but it's essentially about a woman who immigrated to America from Korea when she was like in her early teens. And she had a friend there that like she kind of had a young love with.
Oh, this is with Greta.
Greta Lee.
Greta Lee, yes.
Yes. And so, and they keep in communication. They kind of try and date, but like life gets in the way. And she meets someone else and they get married and they have like a lovely relationship. And it really posits like, so this childhood love comes back into her life. And it really posits like, is the unknown prospect of something that could be good better than what you have and you know is good? And it like posits the two relationships next to each other. And anyway, I'm obsessed with that as someone who's been in a relationship for a really long time. I think we really like the grass is always greener, you know? I like stories where it's like it's really not though.
Yeah.
So I want to read this book.
Funny story. Yeah, like it was kind of cool, and she kind of touches on a lot of like her main characters most of the time not in all of her books, but they do end up going to therapy as well towards the end of it.
We love a therapy
because she like really believes in like growing emotionally and kind of getting a little bit more like in tune with your emotions. So she kind of discusses that as to why she thinks that needs to be kind of discussed. Like everybody can actually get some sort of benefits of going to therapy, and she tries to include that as much as she can into her books because she knows that sometimes the main characters can come across and we discussed this on Kill Trip, they can be very emotionally immature. So that's why a lot of times one or two of them will end up going to therapy in her books.
Oh my God, am I going to be a romance person? This sounds incredible.
I know, I promise you, I'm going to have so many recommendations for other romance books, and I don't think Kill Trip was a good introduction if I wanted to convert you. So we can discuss.
We're doing a bride deep dive.
We are.
And I just started that. Sorry, we're really getting off track here, but yeah.
I'm a big Ali Hazelwood fan, and she's one of our local authors too, so I can't wait to discuss that more in the future.
So cool.
So yeah, that was Emily Henry. And yeah, Funny Stories out, ready. I actually was able to get that book during our independent bookstore shop day. So it was kind of nice that I was able to kind of grab that real quick. Yeah. She normally tends to sell out really quickly.
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, I have two things really quickly. This just made me think of this. Abby Jimenez, who is another romance author, posted something on her social media the other day of seeing a woman walking through the airport with her book, and she's like, "Oh my God, this woman has my book," and it's her like catching up to the woman and taking pictures and crying and being like, this was like years and years of hard work, and like this was like a dream moment, and like you can tell the person who has the book is also really excited. Anyway, it was just like a beautiful book news moment where I was just like, this is why we read. Like it was such a beautiful, I don't know, it just made me really happy. It was like a really warm fuzzy.
Abby Jimenez is great. I know that she wrote Yours Truly, which was like a New York Times bestseller. And then she just came out with Just for the Summer, I believe is the name. I also just bought this book during our independent bookstore shop. So I'm really, that's one of the books that I want to read over the summer. So we'll be probably reporting a little bit more news on
It made me love her. It made me love her because she seems to have such an appreciation for her readers. So it was
she's very active on her socials, and she's always giving shout outs to people, and like she's great. She's I love her.
Okay. Piece of fun news. Kristen Stewart has a new vampire thriller.
I am so excited for this, and I'm wondering like what her thought process about it is. 'Cause, I mean, she has to have like really conflicting feelings about Twilight, I would imagine.
Oh, no, it's not conflicted. She hates them. She hates those movies. Yeah.
So I wonder how those negotiation and conversations took place.
And yeah, it's called Flesh of the Gods. Also, we should mention here, like, book news for us is obviously very loose. If we've read a book that's related to it, we're going to talk about it. It's book news and pop culture.
Yeah.
But it's called Flesh of the Gods, and it's coming out 12 years to the day after Twilight, which I thought was really funny.
Okay.
And I think you mentioned, isn't
Oscar Isaac is going to be her partner in this movie, which I am obsessed with him. I love him. He's a great actor. Some of you may know him from Moon Knight, which is one of the shows in Disney Plus. It's like a Marvel associated show, but he was so great in it. Amazing actor. I actually have a little bit of a crush on him.
He's a total babe.
Because he is so handsome.
He's so handsome.
He's also in Dune too, the first movie.
Yes.
He was the main dad guy. Yeah, I love him. I don't know. I have a thing for him and for like Mark Ruffalo, which they kind of look alike a little bit.
Like a scruffy dad.
I think so. Oh God, my daddy issues are showing now. That's not great. It's not good.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I'm obsessed with Oscar Isaac, so I think it's gonna be really, both of them are really, really good actors. So I'm excited to see what the movie's
It's an
like.
interesting pairing. There's a big age difference between them.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know. Have you read the little synopsis of the book of the movie? What it's supposed to
No.
be? It's supposed to be set in the 80s. It's like a vampire
Oh, I
thriller
love
in the
that.
80s,
Okay.
and like they meet like a random stranger a stranger, and they get like really carried away into like this magnetic human, and he's just like I guess he's like a vampire, and then he just converts
Oh,
them.
I'm so into it. Okay,
So
we're gonna
and
go
it's in
and see
the
that together,
80s.
by the
Yeah,
way.
I'm
Okay.
excited. So
Okay, I
yeah.
think where we should end is your Abbott Elementary update.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was
Okay.
a full circle moment. We both
Yes.
love that show.
So Abbott Elementary, which is one of my comfort shows, is one of the ones that like after a long day I'll just kind of put on and just kind of watch. But the newest episode, as of today, as we're recording, they actually had a book club episode, and it was all around Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, which I know is Lindsay's favorite book. So I thought that was so fun, and I just immediately thought of you when I was watching that.
It's so funny because that book has been out for like decades at this point, and I like stumbled on it in college, and it had a fair amount of acclaim. But I like really seeing this resurgence of love for Octavia Butler, and just seeing it in like a pop culture moment like that is Quinta Brunson. You are my queen. I love you. I'm so excited. It's so cool.
Yeah, it made me so happy. And like that book was very prominently highlighted in our little tours of the independent bookstores as well. I'm sorry, I keep bringing that up. But I kept taking videos because
yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this book is everywhere. So it just kind of made me so happy for this writer. Like she's kind of, I see her everywhere now. So I'm like so excited for
It's
her.
just interesting because like that's why I love sci-fi. It's because she wrote that book so long ago, and it's very prescient. Like it's about a pandemic. It's about like post-apocalyptic politics. Like it just works. And then
Yeah.
like seeing it in like a nice show like Abbott Elementary. I don't know. I just love that.
Yeah, they were so cute, and they were like, they made it sound like the book club was like a very exclusive group. So then they go and discuss it, and then there's like 6 or 7 of the actors that are in there, and then they just kind of start doing this post-apocalyptic reenactment of roles. So they divide into factions and trying to kind of fight each other out and see who would survive if this were to happen in real life. And then shenanigans, and sure, I don't want to give it out too much, but it was a great episode, and I just thought of you the entire time.
Full circle. I think that's a beautiful way to end
Yeah.
our news updates.
Yeah, it was really good.
Go read those books, everyone.
I know I will.